Ever pictured a T-Rex stopping dead in its tracks? Like it just saw something that made even its mighty jaw hesitate? That's the vibe we're going for. The real showstopper here is Ankylosaurus. Think of a tank that decided 2 legs were enough. You're strolling along the Cretaceous era trail, minding your business. Maybe prehistoric tune, when you spot this low-slung beast. Everything about it screams, "Don't mess with me." From the ridged armor plates covering its back to that monumental tail club swinging behind it like a medieval mace on wheels. Imagine being a T-Rex, sharp senses, appetite peaking, and suddenly you see this living fortress. The armor alone is already uncomfortable. A bony mosaic acting like a bulletproof vest. One bite and you'd be crunching through logic. But that tail? That's where things get cinematic. That thing isn't just there to look tough. It's a bone-crunching, ankle-shattering wrecking ball. You'd have to be either fearless or not very smart to test it out. Picture this moment slow motion. T-Rex claws scrabbling, drawing nearer. Confident it's about to dominate, and then, wham! The tail swings in a perfect arc, and the predator's jaw might as well be a steering wheel on a bumper car. Suddenly, that toothy empire gets a rude introduction to the power of ouch. Ankylosaurus isn't launching a fatal blow every time, but oh, that sting changes the whole mood of the hunt. And there's something delightfully ironic about it. This thing's slow gait isn't a disadvantage, it's a vibe. It says, I've got nothing to prove because everything I need is already in this armor and club package. It's the dinosaur equivalent of crossing the room in confidence, arms crossed, daring you to even think about messing with it. Now think about the evolutionary back and forth that must have gone on. Ancestors of Ankylosaurus possibly started out with tail clubs for roughhousing at prehistoric schoolyard brawls, maybe head-smacking each other, showing off who's boss. Then maybe one day some clever dino was like, hey, what if I swung this at something bigger, like an overconfident T-Rex? And bam, instant career pivot from icky, awkward sibling rivalry to predator deterrent extraordinaire. So here's the moment you've been picturing. A T-Rex, powerful and confident, steps in, jaws open, roaring the roar of all roars, and then that tail club comes in like the world's beefiest fly swatter. Suddenly our predator isn't so sure it wants dinner anymore. Now it's thinking about pouting off into the sunset and finding something less likely to snap its leg. And that moment, where brute strength meets equally compelling defense, is pure storytelling gold. It's about power balanced by preparation, about how evolution can equip a creature not by making it the most aggressive, but simply the most unappealing target. In the world of dinosaurs, teeth and claws aren't always all you need. Sometimes what changes the game is looking like a walking fortress with a built-in mace. That's Ankylosaurus. And in a showdown, that tail wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. Try me, if you dare. Now let's talk about the dinosaur that looked like it was designed by a medieval weapons expert, Triceratops. Big head, bigger horns, and a face that seemed to say, I'm not here for your nonsense. If Ankylosaurus was the tank, Triceratops was the armored knight riding it. The first thing you'd notice, besides the fact it's roughly the size of a bus, is that massive frill and those 3 horns. 2 long ones above the eyes, sharp as spears, and a shorter one on the nose for close quarters combat. Each horn was built from solid bone, tipped for maximum penetration power. Now imagine you're a T-Rex again. You're hungry, you're pumped, and here's dinner. Except this dinner is staring you down with enough pointed hardware to make you think you wandered into a jousting match. And it's not just for show. Those horns were more than capable of tearing through predator hide. Scientists have even found Triceratops fossils with healed puncture wounds from battles with other Triceratops, which means they didn't just point their weapons at predators. They used them on each other in some prehistoric display of dominance. And when it came to facing down a T-Rex, the strategy was simple. Hold your ground, lower your head, and let that massive neck and shoulder musculature drive the point home. Literally. One well-placed charge could crush ribs or even puncture organs. If the predator survived, it probably didn't forget the encounter. You can almost picture a T-Rex limping away with a story to tell. Yeah, don't pick the one with the horns. The best part? Triceratops wasn't just relying on raw strength. It had the build to make those weapons count. Short, sturdy legs planted firmly on the ground meant it could absorb a hit and return it with interest. And that frill? Sure, it might have been partly for display or thermoregulation, but in the heat of battle, it doubled as a shield, protecting the neck from a fatal bite. Predators usually go for the easy target, the weak, the injured, the young. But with Triceratops, even the young had a decent chance if they stuck with the herd. Picture a group of these horned tanks moving together, front lines bristling with sharp points ready to skewer anything that dared charge. That's not a buffet for a carnivore. That's a bad day waiting to happen. And here's where it gets fun. Imagine the standoff. Dust in the air, both animals sizing each other up, waiting for the other to blink. T-Rex circles, trying to get an angle, but every time it moves, those horns follow. Always ready, always dangerous. The wrong move, and it's game over. The predator's instincts are screaming, not worth it. The truth is, Triceratops was a masterclass in deterrence. It didn't have to win every fight. It just had to make the fight risky enough that most predators thought twice. In the prehistoric world, survival wasn't just about being the fastest or the strongest. It was about making your opponent ask, "Is this meal worth my life?" And more often than not, the answer was no. Triceratops earned its respect not by hiding or running, but by standing its ground with a lethal mix of muscle, bone, and attitude. It was the kind of herbivore that reminded the apex predators. Sometimes, the prey fights back, and sometimes, it wins. Now we get to the heavyweight champion of, you don't want this smoke, Alamosaurus. If the other two were dangerous because of weapons and armor, this one's secret was even simpler. It was just enormous. We're talking about a dinosaur so big it made even a T-Rex look like a slightly annoyed house cat. Picture an animal stretching close to 100 feet from nose to tail, with legs as thick as tree trunks, and a body mass that could crush a car just by stepping on it. If cars existed 70 million years ago, and that wasn't fat lumbering around, this was dense, living muscle and bone, supported by pillar-like legs that turned every step into a seismic event. Predators like T-Rex usually hunted what they could kill quickly. They'd go after smaller prey, or at least something they could bring down without risking a life-altering injury. But an Alamosaurus, that was more like trying to move build. Even if you got your teeth in, good luck making a dent before those massive muscles started swinging that tail. And that tail, oh, it wasn't just for balance. One well-aimed swipe could break bones, knock you flat, or just send you flying into next week. This wasn't a dinosaur that relied on speed or stealth. It didn't need to. It could simply stand there and be untouchable. You can almost hear it thinking, you can try, but you're going to regret it. And even the most confident predator had to admit, attacking something that could stomp you into paste wasn't the smartest survival move. What's wild is that despite its sheer bulk, Alamosaurus probably had a calm, steady pace to its life, grazing on vegetation, minding its business, walking with that slow, swaying motion that big animals have. But make no mistake, that calm was not weakness. It was the confidence of knowing nothing out there really wanted to mess with you. When you're 70+ tons of good luck with that, you can afford to be chill. And predators knew it. Sure, maybe a pack of hungry carnivores could try to swarm a juvenile Alamosaurus, but the adults, they were basically walking "do not disturb" signs. The cost-to-benefit ratio just didn't add up. Even if a T-Rex thought about it, the first tail swipe or defensive stomp would make it rethink its life choices. If you imagine the prehistoric plains, with these giants moving slowly in herds, it's almost surreal. T-Rexes could be roaming nearby, but there's no dramatic chase scene here. Just the quiet acknowledgement between apex predator and immovable herbivore. Yeah, not today. The only time things probably got dangerous was if an Alamosaurus felt cornered, or if its young were threatened. Then, all that slow-moving bulk would suddenly become a force of nature, swinging a tail like a wrecking ball and pushing forward with unstoppable weight. That's the real lesson here. Sometimes survival isn't about weapons, armor, or speed. It's about being so large and unbothered that the idea of attacking you feels ridiculous. In a way, Alamosaurus might have been the ultimate example of peaceful strength, a creature that didn't have to fight every day to stay alive, because its very presence was enough to keep trouble at bay. In the end, that's why even the fiercest predator of its time could look at Alamosaurus and think, yeah, maybe I'll just grab something smaller. It wasn't about fear in the dramatic sense. It was about respect. And respect, in the dinosaur world, could mean the difference between ruling the land and becoming a cautionary tale. So when you look at Ankylosaurus, Triceratops, and Alamosaurus, you start to realize something. They weren't just prey on the menu. They were living reminders that nature's power doesn't belong only to the hunters. Sometimes it's in the armor that can shatter bones, the horns that can stop a charge, or the sheer size that makes a predator think twice. It's a good reminder that survival isn't always about being the fastest or the fiercest. It's about knowing exactly what you bring to the fight and making sure everyone else knows it too. Now I'm curious. If you had to face a T-Rex, which one of these giants would you want watching your back? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this trip back in time, hit that like button and share it with someone who still thinks plant eaters had it easy.